And here we are for the SSUV settings panel. Okay, let's scroll down to the rollout here. We have a settings explainer with different sections. Now, this is from beta work, so these sections might not be updated until I have time to update these. So if you get these for like the RC beta, they might not be perfect. So I will be sure to go over things with a fine comb before release of version 1.0. All right, so let's get into this with a button here that is the SSUV floater button. So you know in the SSUV rollout that we have this pink hazard button, and when we click it, we either pop out the SSUV rollout or we pop it in, right? But what happens if we pop it out and we accidentally close it? Uh-oh, how do we get it back open? Well, we go to the settings panel and we click there. There we go. It's back for you. All right. Next, we have use image preview clicks. I'm going to open up the UI preview floater. And now when I select an object and click here, it's going to actually load the object in. And I changed these colors for now, so let's just go back real quick. A little ahead of myself there. So, preview image click. So when I click here, it's actually going to preview the selection and handle the unwrap modifier add if that option is on. And if I click here, nothing else is going to happen because we don't have an object selected. So it's just going to clear, right? So it's functional, right? It's working. If we use image or preview image clicks off, when we click here, nothing happens. It's just a dead block. And this toolbar or the information bar right here will still update. So it's still useful to a degree. I don't know if we can we do that? Yeah, we can do that. So if you wanted to keep an information bar open, you can just do that. However, I don't recommend that because then you won't be able to have the rollout update either because that's turned off. Yeah, that was a stupid idea. Okay. Next, we have show color map and preview. Let's turn that on. Let's open up the UI float. We'll select this object and we'll click to load that. We see that there is no color map being shown, so we're going to right click. We see that there is no material on this, so we're going to grab this ugly one. Oh, that's right, I was working on this other one. We're going to put that texture on there, and now I can click, and we have the color map composited into the preview image, just like we do with the setting up here, right? There we go. And we can turn that off down here. And then we click here and it's off, even though we turn it on up here. Okay, so I see I have to fix that. My apology for that being an issue. Okay, so you know that if it's not working properly, just you can change it. And auto add unwrap modifier. We need this turned on for most of the functionality in SSUV. And what we have here is an editable poly object. I'm going to clear that. I select an editable poly object and I click the preview image. We have an unwrap modifier automatically added. If I click the preview image again, we do not get an extra one. We just preview the unwrap modifier that is selected. So if I add map channel 2 here, and we're previewing map channel 2, they're both very similar. So let me just kind of, we'll just do some silly loop there. There we go. And we have that rendered out. You can see that we're not adding another modifier. We're automatically using the modifier that is there. So I'm going to delete those and then deselect the objects. Click there to clear that and show you that once more. Select the object. We click. It automatically gives us one. It's just easier. Life is easier when it's just smoother, right? So when we select the treasure chest top, now we can actually select smoothing groups. Okay, it adds the modifier and does the process, right? We can select this and do a box map. It adds the modifier and does the process. It's just done, right? So there we go. You want to keep that on unless you have a reason to turn it off. Next, we have rename modifiers with channel number. So this is interesting. I like to keep this on all the time, but you might have to turn this off. if you're aware of how to fix a problem when you run into like somebody's scripted tool, then great. That's perfect because you'll be able to manage this. If you do run into a problem and you don't know how to manage that, if it's related to an unwrapped modifier, you're not having a correct name or couldn't find the unwrapped modifier, and it possibly mentions this name like a channel 1 or channel 2 appended to it, well, what we can do is just remove the rename option here and then click reset selection, click yes. It will rename the modifier back to the default name. That's just in case you ever have a problem. I don't want to tell someone to turn this on and then end up having a problem, okay? So I don't know how the thousands of MaxScript tools out there operate. I'm sure one of them, or some of them, check for the modifier name instead of checking for the modifier class. And so I don't want you to end up with a broken setup and say, well, what the hell's wrong here? Da, 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 da. I want you to be aware. So there we go. I'm going to leave that on for myself for now. Click that, channel 1. Show tooltips in SSUV. Now, when you saw me working through the video series, if I hover over a button and I click real quick, I might end up clicking the tooltip instead of the button. So once you've become comfortable with SSUV, it's best to turn the tooltips off. That way you don't need to worry about clicking a tooltip or waiting for a tooltip to disappear. Maybe you're all right with tooltips. You can leave it on. Next, we have audio. Helpful tones. They're not hyper annoying. They might be a little annoying. I had plans for the sound system to notify you of various things, but it felt heavy to implement and expect novices to use and understand. That was the primary thing. So I just decided to whittle it down a bit and use it for informing users when an error occurs or that they need to be notified of something. So if I turn this on, audio, use helpful tones, then I go back up here and I load this, okay, it doesn't give me any sound, right? But if I collapse to an editable poly, select it and click, I'm being notified that an unwrapped modifier was added, okay? And that did make a sound, okay? But if I click again, it's not making a sound. Now, that's different for these floating UI windows. Those will make sound every single time. Oh, they're not making sound anymore. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it is only when you add the unwrapped modifier. Yeah. I know my tools. So let's go into the audio, helpful tones. It's best probably just turn that off. I should eliminate it from the entire system. Use colorful UI buttons. This is something that I think is interesting because when I first looked at this button panel, it's a lot of noisy color and kind of is a visual headache. I'm not offended by anybody thinking that. Believe me, that is a visual headache. That's why I made that large SSUV button to make it easy to spot. But the point of this being so dense and visually noisy is because from here to here there's so much functionality in that space that, you know, the colors help you to differentiate the buttons. But if you do not like the colors, I completely understand. You can change this to use colorful UI buttons, or you can change it to turn that off. Then you get more of a max palette for the color buttons, right? You do not get to see the colors for the packing. These are updated to a more muted palette. And same with the tools here. These are updated to a more muted palette, right? Now, these make it a little more difficult to read. And I see I didn't update these place icons either. They don't say stack. But nevertheless, that's there, and it's there if you want it, okay? And so next we're going to go into show polygon selection. Now, when you update the preview here, you're going to see the polygon selection. We have to go into polygon mode to see what we have selected. I'm going to double click the top and then update this preview. You see we have pink here. If you'd like to get a thicker or a more solid representation. We can turn that up. Okay, that's more pink, but maybe it's not perfect. Let's go down to 0.23. There you go. Maybe it's better to keep it around this range. So that's pinkish red. You can tell it's selected. We can select all of this and update this, and there you go. I'm going to pop the UI out for a second. I want to update this. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to actually alt right click to remove the material for a second. Now we have this here. Now I'm going to update this. You can see that we have this selection here. That's great. But you'll notice there's a triangle highlighted. And that's just Max's behavior. There is this vertex selected, and this vertex selected. So it's just thinking that that triangle is also selected. It's close enough. It works well enough. I don't see any reason for me to overhaul that. It's just something that exists in the tool set, right? So it's an unsupported feature. It's there. Just that exclamation point helps you be aware that there is some wonkiness to it. Okay. So I'm going to turn that back off. I'm going to actually pop this out and keep it out. That way I don't have to keep rolling up. There we go. Get and set UV settings. This can grab the settings from the UV editor and then save them. Then it will use the UV settings for SSUV, and then it will replace the settings for the editor to go back to the settings it had before SSUV was ran. Now, is it perfect? No. I actually thought about just removing it entirely because maybe it's kind of frivolous to even have in the first place. So I'd give you an example of it in use, but I'm not sure I can get that to happen. So forgive me if this doesn't work out right. I'll try it anyhow. I'm going to click here to get this loaded up. What we're going to do is change color over. I'll right click to open up the editor. And you can see that color is not being displayed in the editor, but it is being displayed here. Okay. Remove that setting. I'm going to close that pop-up and close this and open the floater back up. We're going to click that and get that back open. And we still have the same settings here. So I think I began removing the settings for this, or just the general way that this is being used. And yeah, maybe I'll just remove it. So this is something that probably won't be in future versions. Add novice user extras. So this is something for the novice users. There's a bunch of things for the novice users. It's nice to learn how to UV map, and it's nice to have a little help to learn how to UV map, since it is the bane of most people's existence when they are learning. Now, what we'll do here is scroll down to find those tools. Where are they? Do I even have? There they are, all the way at the top. So we have convert to editable poly. So I can take my selection here, and it has an unwrap modifier on there. I can take it and just convert it to an editable poly. That's similar to my Shift D, shortcut that I have set up. Okay. We can also do a select all. That's now selecting all in the scene. If we are in polygon mode, well, let's add an unwrap modifier. If we are in unwrap modifier polygon mode, we can select all of the polygons for the UV elements, right? So we can also go from base mode to vertex to edge to polygon, okay? This is specifically for UVW sub-object levels. Then we have convert UVW selection types. We have vert to edge, vert to poly. You get the idea. So we're going to go poly to edge. We'll go edge to vert. We're going to go vert to poly. Yeah? So you can convert things back and forth and all that jazz, right? There you go. So that novice feature rollout doesn't necessarily need to be there. I don't really know why I remove it, but you can turn it off. I'm neither here nor there about that. And let's get further into this. We have SSUV temp files. So we're going to update that. When we update that, we see session UVs are at 0. That's because it's a feature that's been kind of nulled out. We don't really need to save the UV renders when we preview this image here. I used to because, older paradigms for some people, but I think it's better that we don't save them now. You can render them out in the mini batcher. Then we can see that we have all that says 6. So we'll click on that to open up the directory to find out what is the 6. And we see it's mini batcher. And these are the mini batch files that I created earlier when I rendered out the UV templates from the mini batcher section, the render layouts. It's actually called render layouts mini batcher. All right. And let's go to this next one. Let's update. That says UV back files. We're going to click there to see if we have UV back files. We do not right now. So I'm going to load this in. Then I'm going to click. Where am I going? SSUV. Going to click UV1 to save. Now I have a UV back file. It says that UV back file is 1. So I'm going to click that and I can get the UV back files here. I can get them in the other location too for the UV back section and the UV files button. All right, next we have the preview options for view. So you can go from normal, shaded, none, and color. You can set the fill color. You get the idea. We don't want red actually, forget that. Let's go to blue. Okay. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah, it resets it to the alpha there. I don't think I set an alpha. Did I? Yes, I did. So you can change the alpha value so that you don't have to reset it here. Oh, it didn't even accept it. Okay, so you set the alpha yourself. There we go. That's fine. We're back in business with that. Now you can turn off the edge, right? You can turn off the line. Okay. You can turn up the color. Okay, you can change that. Okay. You can turn the edge on by itself. Bring this back down so it looks more ideal. We can turn the line back on. We can alpha down. There you go. All right, that's the settings section. And yeah, there is an RC menu that's in the SSUV rollout here. When you click that, you have a various listing of options. There's dialogues for Macs as well as SSUV processes. There's settings here, but you can't pay attention to whether they're on or off for what the flag is. I have to work on that. The help section is here, so we'll have some helpful information and some things to access, like the SSUV videos, links, other information. There is a localized simplified doc set, but what we have here, there's outdated information. I changed the name on everything. I'm going a different route with things. So the metaometry is no longer there. So I'll update that. But this is beta level docs, actually early beta level docs, because you can see what this used to look like. And I changed this up quite a bit. But nevertheless, you can still select on rollout. So if we select tools, we can then open the tools here and we can see that most of the tools are the same, right? So you can find out what the tools are and if there's any different options available, right? There's the settings section. There's Trim Gym. That's been updated too to have new features. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do to make sure everybody's up to speed and that this is a decent product. But at the same time, I'm going to base all of that work on how well it's received and how many people are using it, right? Because there's no sense in spending a lot of time on building this out if it's not going to be used by a decent number of people. So I hope it is, but we'll just have to wait and see, right? Okay, let's get into Trim Gym next.